Welcome to the Preventive Medicine Podcast. Help us change the paradigm of medicine from keep people alive to help people thrive, one episode at a time. And now, here's the show.
So, as I said, I'm Alyssa Olenick. I have a master's degree in exercise physiology, and I'm currently, a third-year student pursuing my PhD in exercise physiology as well. I'm really interested in metabolism and sex differences in metabolism in regards to exercise and just general metabolic health. So I do a lot of feeding people high-fat meals and putting them through exercise protocols and looking at substrate utilization during that. Man, I haven't talked to people in a while. So I'm just really interested in how we can use exercise and nutrition to optimize metabolic health in people. Like that's probably like my biggest mission in life. And then I'm really mostly focused on I do online coaching and training and merging my research interest and exercise interest with that and just getting women to engage in like evidence-based exercise and nutrition practices so that they can optimize that themselves, because that's more of my niche of what I'm mostly focused on a business standpoint. But overall, I've been an athlete and I've loved fitness my entire life. And I joke that like I found fitness and sport first and I fell in love with science by accident. I literally was a first semester college freshman. I got 6 tutors because I was so scared I was going to fail my classes. And then I did well in like biology and I was tutoring my friends about glycolysis by the end of the semester. And I was like, oh, wait, I kind of like science. So it all kind of fell into place from there. And I was like, it was like the whole world opened up because I was like, you can do so much with science, right? And so I kind of just decided to merge the two things that I loved and made the most sense to me. And then just kind of really went full throttle 100% at it since then. So
one of the interesting things about kind of, I guess, my thought process with fitness and science, even though it's like, I feel like all of us probably, it's so intertwined and we all kind of can have our personal experiences of like, we all find the science in fitness, but kind of I feel like a lot of times with general public, it actually goes kind of the other way. It's almost like sometimes getting too sciencey with people turns them away from it a little bit. So how do you kind of walk that line of like, okay, I want to stay evidence-based and science with a scientific approach, but also reach the general population who really doesn't care about the TCA cycle?
So I said this on a former podcast I did a few months ago, and I say that of all the stuff I know, I probably only share and communicate 20% of it. But I need to know that 80% of what I know in order to make sure what I'm telling people or suggesting or talking about is like based off the best evidence that I personally know off what I've read and like researched and studied. But you don't need to bring people into that full 100% or that other 80% because it's just confusing and people are intimidated by science to begin with in a weird way. So a lot of people have that apprehension that they're like, well, I don't understand science, so I don't need to know that. So it's about taking what you know and what you understand and you've kind of mastered, I guess, to some degree. And can you take that and turn it into a digestible form that doesn't seem scary for the general public, but is just enough information to kind of convince them that maybe their former line of thinking was not the most optimal or why they thought this about diets or exercise isn't quite true. And that if you take this approach, it's actually like people really like when things are backed on by science, quote unquote, like they love saying that once they can buy into it. But It's about making the science not as scary. And I think that if I go and explain to my Gen Pop clients what's going on at a molecular level with their body, they don't really care. They care about how that applies to whole body life level. So you have to take it and understand that people are emotional beings and there's psychological aspects to that. But how can you get them to appreciate what they need to know just enough so that they can buy into the science and apply it to their lives, if that makes sense. So
yeah, and I think that translates also not only to nutrition, metabolism, exercise, and all those things, but like both of us, me and Jason, medical students. Obviously, medicine is an insanely complex like field. There's just so much going on. There's a reason you have to do 4 years of medical school and residency. But when it comes down to talking to patients, you have to, in a quote unquote, dumb it down quite a bit so your patients understand what's going on. So very similar in terms of like the evidence-based background. We have to know so much of that, like 80 to 90 to like 99%, and you're only communicating 1 to like 20% of it, however much, wherever you want to put those percentages. And that's kind of the difficult part of knowing where to put that percentage to communicate it to the general populace.
Yeah.
Because some people might be able to understand a little bit more and they really need that like 20%, where some people you can get away with like 1 to 5% of communicating. They're like, all right, we're good to go.
Yeah. And I'm very big on, I think that I like to I do this a lot with my followers, my clients, where I want to like remind them, like, you're smart enough to understand this. You're not dumb. Like, you're capable of understanding this, but let's bring it to a level that it makes sense. And I remember doing this as a tutor in undergrad, where my best friend, she had really bad ADHD and she could not pass biology to save her life, but we got her through it. And I made like this ladder factory analogy for her to understand DNA replication and synthesis. But it's like, she understood the science as soon as I gave her something to like hold on to that made sense. And I think getting that for people who like seem to be a little scared from it. Like, they're like, well, you can understand 5%. I really believe truly that you can, but let's explain to it in a way that like you believe that you can do that and have that skill. So
yeah, and one of the things I really believe is that whether it's medicine, fitness, whatever, I think creating that bond with the patient or client or however you want to describe them is so important in terms of bridging that gap of, figuring out how much they know or how to explain things to them in a language that makes sense and then they can go apply. I think so much of that gets lost kind of with kind of more scientific folks, where we kind of lose that personable approach, where we start to become so engrossed in the science that we lose the fact that the point of doing this is to actually reach out to people. So I think that kind of one of those things that we're all kind of learning along the way is how to bridge that gap between the knowledge that we have and also not losing our ability to bond with an individual to kind of share that knowledge.
Yeah. And I think that's something that you're not taught how to do that, right? So I started my Instagram and my master's, and I remember I started doing it because one of my professors, he's like, if you want to get better at talking and writing and communicating science, you got to do it often. And so I was like, well, I can write a caption every day. And so if like people go back and read my former early on captions, they were dumpster fires. They were trash. But over years and years and years of practicing doing that, you get better. And no one teaches you in med school or your PhD how to they teach you to be really smart and really knowledgeable. But then if you aren't a normal, like a naturally social person who kind of has that skill, which a lot of really high level, really smart scientists or in medicine or tech or health or whatever, sometimes they're just so smart that they don't know how to like bring that to people.
Absolutely.
And no one trains you. And we see that in the media and social media and all that stuff all the time, is like, there's not the proper approach to like translating research findings or what it actually means, or like a general public understanding of it. And so people are just taking their best guess. And then there's all this misinformation where, I mean, I wish there was more of that. And I'm very fortunate to be self-training myself into doing this, but they don't teach you how to do it. And so it's not anyone's really fault that they don't know how. It's just that I feel like sometimes there's too much praise on like doing good science and not enough for like being someone who understands science or medicine or health or whatever it is and being able to communicate that. That's kind of like a less respected skill, I guess. Yeah.
And I think
go ahead.
I think that's one of the barriers actually to reaching people, is because I think so much of the misinformation out there is actually spread by people who are very charismatic. So they naturally draw people in with their personality and their social skills. So people are going to be more prone to believe what they have to say. And then, like you said, on the other end, you have like the science-based folks who, are just as interesting as like drywall. So, they don't draw as many people in, and then it shifts more to people paying attention to the louder, more charismatic people who maybe don't have the right knowledge or aren't saying the right things, but it doesn't matter because they have 8 million followers on Instagram and people really love the way they talk, they look, they relate to people. So I think that's one of the challenges we're really faced with in kind of this preventive medicine, fitness, health kind of spectrum for science.
Preventive medicine is an incredibly important topic. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. For the full episode, find us on your favorite podcast streaming platform. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it to keep that message spreading. Thank you once again for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.